We now move on to leaders' questions. Could I call on Deputy Micheál Martin? Thank you.
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle. Tánaiste, I think prior to the Cabinet meeting this morning, I think the very significant issue of the day, and one which concerns up to 1.1 million people that we know of, that we're told about, is the extraordinary criminal offence that has occurred of a gigantic nature, probably the largest ever in terms of affecting so many people in the state, i.e. the breach in terms of personal and financial data and the details of so many people being hacked into, I think is a very, very worrying development in relation to the fact that credit card details have been so fatally compromised, and some banks have now confirmed that not only is it that the information was hacked into by criminals, but that fraudulent transactions have occurred as a result. Now, to date, we haven't really got a strong sense of the scale of this from the Data Protection Office. It's doing its best, and on the website it's indicated up to 376,000 people on its systems, on the systems of Loyalty Build, had their credit card details stolen, and the financial details of 150,000 clients have potentially been compromised. And it's added to that in more recent times, and again this morning we've had worse news. Now, Taoiseach, or Tánaiste, the key point here is who is in charge in government. If you look up the various government websites, there's an extraordinary absence of any sense of someone being in charge of this key area. The Department of Justice will say, and the Minister's silence on this has been deafening, but he will say that child abuse on the internet has been their primary concern across the whole area of cybercrime. The Minister for Communications isn't taking full possession of the ball in relation to this issue. And what I would ask you, Taoiseach, is the Minister Rabbitte has said that consumers who lost money when they were hacked were entitled to their money back. Can you confirm that the government has taken steps with the companies involved and with the banks involved to ensure that consumers will get their money back? And what steps are the government going to take to ensure that the personal and financial details of people are absolutely secure? Because government is encouraging people to go online in every single transaction. And what's happening over the last number of days and what has been revealed, and I think more will be revealed, I don't think we've had the full scale of this yet articulated in public, I think it will shatter people's confidence in online banking transactions. Now, banking crime isn't something new, but what we're now witnessing is faceless criminals who don't have to resort to armed robberies anymore, but who can literally rob hundreds of thousands of people through breaching data and through hacking into various systems.
Thank you.
And I think it's urgent that the government would indicate that it has a grip on this issue.
Thank you. Tánaiste.
Well, I think we're all aware, Deputy Martin said, that a data breach has occurred at a company called Loyalty Build, a company which processes transactions in relation to loyalty schemes on behalf of other companies. Given the seriousness of the breach, the Office of the Data Commissioner sent in an inspection team to investigate the breach. The Commissioner has received a preliminary report on the findings of the inspection team. The inspection team confirmed the extent of the breach, in which the full card details of over 376,000 customers were taken, of which in the region of 80,000 were Irish customers. Over 70,000 were SuperValue Getaway customers, and over 8,000 were AXA Leisure Break customers. The details of an additional 150,000 clients were potentially compromised. The inspection team also confirmed that the name, address, phone number and email addresses of 1.12 million clients were also taken. It is not yet known how many of the 150,000 or of the 1.2 million are Irish customers. The initial indications are that these breaches were an external criminal act. The Office of the Data Commissioner will assess fully the findings of the inspection and has already made a number of recommendations to Loyalty Build. A follow-up inspection will also be carried out. Garda Síochána is also investigating the matter, and I think the important message at this stage is that customers affected be vigilant in relation to their accounts, particularly any transactions since the end of October of this year, and to report any suspicious transactions to their card company. Clients should also be vigilant in relation to suspicious communication of any kind which they received. The Office of the Data Commissioner, once we have the report from the Office of the Data Protection Commissioner, once the Minister for Justice's report from the Garda Commissioner, we will then take whatever steps are necessary arising from that.
Deputy Martin.
Tánaiste, thank you for your reply, but I'm somewhat disappointed that I don't detect a sense of urgency from government and from the political leaders in relation to this issue. This is, as you read out from the website of the Office of Data Protection, address phone numbers and email addresses of 1.12 million clients. 1.12 million clients has been breached. That's a massive criminal conspiracy. It's a massive criminal event in itself. It's gigantic, enormous, and I think has profound consequences about people doing business online, and particularly offering their credit card details online. And I think the government either should form a task force or a group between the ministers concerned. I don't know which minister is going to take the lead on the wider issue of cybercrime, but some minister needs to take possession of this, and the government should lead, not just on the specifics of this, but on the wider issue, because from 2009, the reports of breaches to the Data Protection Commission, for example, back in 2009 were 119.
Thanks, Deputy.
In 2012, it's now 1,522. So in a short space of time, that shows the extraordinary increase and frequency of such breaches. But this case is very, very worrying indeed. And what I would ask you Tánaiste, to ascertain, if you can, or if the relevant ministers can, the scale of this. Are we being told by the companies concerned everything that we should be told? Is there full transparency in terms of what consumers should be told? And also an analysis of what happened here, so that obviously encryption and breaches can be prevented into the future. But I think it's a very, very fundamental issue that has enormous impact on business and on people, and I think we need a lot more than we've seen to date, I think, with the greatest respect, in terms of a coherent government response to the issue.
Well, first of all, let me be absolutely clear. The unauthorised accessing of people's credit card details, people's email addresses, contact details and so on is a criminal act. And there are two ways in which we investigate that. One is the Data Protection Commissioner, who has specific responsibility in relation to data, who has already carried out one inspection and who is now carrying out a follow-up inspection. Secondly, the investigation of criminal activity is a matter for the Garda Síochána, and they're carrying out an investigation of it. I want to assure you that the government takes the issue very seriously and very urgently. There are a number of government departments who have responsibility in terms of getting the reports from the Garda Síochána, Data Protection Commissioner, and follow-up activity in relation to this. And in response to your question, I will take responsibility to coordinate the responses from the different government ministers so that there is, as you say, a whole-of-government response to what is a very serious issue that has arisen in relation to credit card fraud.
Thank you. Deputy O'Quayle.
Good morning, Tánaiste, as you are aware, today, the 14th of November, marks, as it does every year since 1991, World Diabetes Day, a day to raise public awareness of diabetes and of the escalating health threat that this condition now poses. And I want to commend the work of the International Diabetes Federation and of its Irish association, Diabetes Ireland, and all those in our health service who care for patients with diabetes and the devastating chronic complications often associated with it, including diabetic cardiomyopathy, diabetic nephropathy, diabetic retinopathy and diabetic foot. In the absence of a register of people who have diabetes, we can't be entirely sure of how many people in Ireland live with diabetes. And in 2012, the International Diabetes Federation estimated that there are approximately 192,000 people here with diabetes, and that by 2030, there will be in excess of 278,000 people with the condition here in this state. Now, speaking, or should I say, I beg your pardon, spending on diabetes is estimated at some 8% of total health spending in this state. So make no mistake about it, by any measure, This is a very, very serious issue. As my party's health spokesperson, I have welcomed progress made in this area of diabetes prevention and management, and I welcome the establishment of the Expert Advisory Group in 2008 and the National Diabetes Working Group in 2010. The National Clinical Programme for Diabetes and the Integrated Care Programme provide a model for the realisation of significant improvements, and progress is being made, and that has to be acknowledged. But Tánaiste, there is clear evidence that these services are both underfunded and under-resourced. We have neither a national register nor have we a national plan. And Tánaiste, if you can't measure, you can't manage. So my closing questions are, we have no screening programme for diabetic retinopathy. We have no national programme for diabetic foot care. When will there be a recognition that we are on the cusp of a very serious public health crisis in relation to diabetes, and when will we see an appropriate response from the department, from the HSE and from this government?
Thank you, Ceann Comhairle, and I want to thank Deputy O'Quillan for raising this issue, as today is World Diabetes Day. This government is committed to early intervention and care for people suffering from chronic illnesses such as diabetes. Specifically, our reform programme is focusing on delivering more treatment of chronic illnesses in primary care settings where it is more cost-effective and more convenient for patients. The HSE's National Clinical Programme, which includes the care of children and adolescents with diabetes, was established in May 2010. The purpose of the programme is to define the way diabetic clinical services should be delivered, resourced and measured. There is strong clinical leadership on the development of the programme, which has as its central aim to save lives, eyes and limbs of patients with diabetes. The objectives of the National Diabetes Programme are, among others, to develop a national retinopathy screening programme, develop a foot care screening and treatment service to prevent diabetic foot ulceration and lower limb amputation, develop an integrated care programme for all patients with diabetes. A care package for diabetic children involving the provision of insulin pumps for children under 5 has been developed. Under 5s are the initial priority. 5 regional centres for the provision of pumps are in place, 3 in Dublin and 1 each in Cork and Limerick, the Limerick-Galway region. The aim of this model of care is simply to improve access to insulin pumps. This model is progressing. For example, 50 children in Cork are on such insulin pump therapy, and the next step is to expand pump therapy to all children. Last March, the National Cancer Screening Service commenced diabetic retinopathy screening. This will offer free, regular diabetic retinopathy screening to children from age 12 and to adults. 30% of eligible patients will be called for screening this year and the remaining 70% next year. A quality assurance framework has been developed and a central database of the eligible population has also been developed. Systematic retinopathy screening on a population basis is clinically effective in identifying treatable eye disease and is cost-effective. The National Cancer Screening Service now has a national register for diabetes. This is a key requirement before screening can commence. A national foot care model is being developed and good progress has been made. Most of the posts for diabetes nurse specialists as part of an integrated care package for patients have now been filled. Work is continuing in this regard in order to improve services available for this chronic disease across the health system. Obviously, it is also important to focus on prevention of chronic diseases, which is a core plank of the government's public health strategy, particularly in relation to tackling obesity. The Special Action Group on Obesity was established by Minister Riley as part of Healthy Ireland, a framework for improving health and well-being. The Healthy Ireland strategy is the basis of a whole-of-government and a whole-of-society approach to health and well-being, and that will be delivered. The Special Action Group on Obesity will meet regularly with the Minister for Health to progress prevention agenda. The group is concentrating on a range of measures, including calorie posting in restaurants, healthy eating guidelines, including the food pyramid, sugar-sweetened drinks tax, marketing of food and drink on children, screening and monitoring, vending machines in schools, and a physical activity plan.
Thank you. Deputy O'Quillan.
I'd like to thank the Tánaiste for his reply, and I'd just like to advise him and the House that the theme of this year's World Diabetes Day is education and prevention. And that is the reason why I've chosen to make this my leader's question choice. I think it is hugely important that we give a lead from this House in this whole regard. Now, in 2008, the National Retinopathy Screening Committee developed a framework for a national screening service, which has been approved by the HSE with the endorsement of the Irish College of Ophthalmologists and patient groups. Now, the report stressed the effectiveness of early detection through a population-based screening programme which will seek to identify all diagnosed people with diabetes and offer them annual screening followed by treatment as necessary. Now, last year, Tánaiste, we were promised 17 integrated care diabetes nurse specialists and 16 podiatrists to support the phased rollout of the programme.
Thank you.
And today, many of these posts remain unfilled. My last question to you: when will we see, given the urgent need of all those posts being filled, when will we see all of these positions being filled, Tánaiste, and when will we have a full rollout of a national screening programme for diabetic retinopathy?
Thank you. Tánaiste.
Well, as I said, the National Cancer Screening Service commenced the diabetic retinopathy screening programme last March. The objective is that 30% of eligible patients will be called for screening in the current year, and the remaining 70% next year. With regard to the issue of the nurse specialists that Deputy O'Quillan referred to, the information that I have is that most of the posts for diabetic nurse specialists as part of the integrated care package for patients, that those posts have been filled and that work is continuing in order to improve the services available for this chronic disease across the health system. I think it is important, and I thank Deputy O'Quillan for raising the issue, because today is World Diabetes Day, and I think it is appropriate that we should put our focus on this issue today. I mean, there is a plan, as Deputy O'Quillan, I think, acknowledged, in place as to how we deal with this issue. It is a growing problem, and it is a major problem in the health service. There is an approach to how to deal with it. Progress is being made on implementing that approach, and I want to assure you that the Minister for Health is absolutely committed to continuing with that work, and indeed he'd be very happy, I'm sure, to report either directly to the House or to the Health Committee on the progress that he is making on it, because I think this is an issue that we should return to. I don't think it's an issue that we should just discuss here. I think it's appropriate, and again, thank you for raising it today, appropriate that it should be raised on World Diabetes Day, but I think it is an issue because of the seriousness of it, and because of, I think we all understand that there is a big problem here, and it is a growing problem, and it is one that I think we should return to collectively, either here in the Chamber or indeed in the Health Committee.
Thank you. Deputy Joan Collins.
Tánaiste, I wish to refer to the case of 6-year-old Faris Daniel Heaney, whose family is in the gallery today, and I salute their recent attempts to raise the issue. You, of course, will be well aware of the case, Tánaiste. Faris was abducted and taken to Egypt 4 years ago against his will. His uncle has since and subsequently been jailed for his abduction. The family have made repeated contact for assistance to various ministers of this government and previous governments going back over these 4 years. Most recently, the family had their first official meeting with Minister Fitzgerald. Minister Fitzgerald explained that Minister Shatter had written to his counterparts in Egypt seeking a bilateral agreement, which the family have been calling for the last number of years. Minister Fitzgerald said she would keep the family informed and send them a letter that she had from Minister Shatter to his counterpart, but they have not received any information over the last 2 weeks. 4 years, Tánaiste, is a long time for this family to have to wait for the state, who are well aware that Egypt is not part of the Hague Convention, to take this action. They welcome it, but are very disappointed and frustrated. There has been a complete lack of urgency on behalf of the state to deal with this case. It isn't good enough to discuss, raise the issue internationally. Can you now guarantee, Tánaiste, that this issue will be pursued with the necessary urgency, and that whatever steps are necessary will be taken to bring Faris back to his family here in Ireland?
Thank you, Deputy. Tánaiste.
Yes, I can give you that assurance, and I want to say to you that I'm taking a personal interest in this case because I think it is very serious and I think it's a very, very sad case. And that is why last Monday I telephoned the Egyptian Minister for Foreign Affairs to discuss this case and I might add the case of the continued detention of the members of the Halawa family, which arose from the protests in Egypt in August. But I talked directly with the Egyptian Minister for Foreign Affairs, Minister Fahmy, about this very sad case. And I urged him and I urged the Egyptian government to look very seriously at this case and to see what could be done to facilitate the return of Faris to his mother. I explained to Minister Fahmy that Faris's mother and her family are distraught at how this child was taken out of this country and how difficult it has been for them since that time. I told him that there was widespread public concern in this country that a child could be removed from this jurisdiction and that the public find it very difficult to understand why this child has not been returned to the care of his mother. I advised him that the uncle of the child, who had taken part in the abduction, had been convicted for his role in that abduction and is currently serving a 6-year prison sentence in Portlaoise prison. I advised the Minister that I have previously raised this case on 2 other occasions with his predecessors as Egyptian foreign ministers and that I'm most anxious that a solution be found to it as a matter of urgency. Minister Fahmy undertook to have the case reviewed and I agreed that our embassy in Cairo will stay in touch with him and with his department to provide him with whatever further details he may need in relation to the case and any information that might be of assistance. Separately, as you have said, Deputy Collins, Minister Shatter has written to the Egyptian Minister for Justice proposing that we should consider signing an agreement for facilitating the return of children who have been abducted. And I strongly support that action, and my department will assist in every way possible in the negotiation of any such agreement. The Gardaí are also continuing to pursue the case through Interpol. The department, as you know, my own department has been providing consular assistance to the family since August 2009 and will continue to do that. So I want to say to you that we are taking this case very seriously indeed. Minister Fitzgerald, as you said, met with the Heaney family on the 4th of November. And I understand that she's agreed to respond to them on some of the issues that were raised during that meeting. This is a very serious case. It's a very difficult case for the family concerned, and I intend to continue to take a personal interest in pursuing it with the Egyptian authorities.
Deputy Collins.
Thank you, Tánaiste. But I think while you're saying that things have moved on a bit, I still do not believe it's enough for this family and other families affected by countries that are not in the Hague Convention. It's not just Egypt, it's Japan and a load of other countries that are not covered by the Hague Convention. And surely this government and the state has responsibility put in place for those families who cannot work to the Hague Convention and are forced outside of it, to put in protocols, to put in departments that can assist these families. You're saying that the family has been contacted by the consular. One-line letters from the department is not good enough. A call to the family to say it's going to be raised by the minister at this international convention and then nothing afterwards is not good enough for these families. 4 years on is not good enough for this family or for other families in relation to it. The Egyptian authorities are well aware of this issue. This family have met the ambassador the Egyptian ambassador in this country for 6 times in the last 4 years, so they're well aware of this issue. The last time they met, they were told to take legal action in Egypt. That's the answer they got from the Egyptian ambassador here in Dublin. That's not good enough. And I think the government should be looking now at how and what instruments they use to put pressure on these governments to come into the Hague Agreement and set up bilateral agreements for children who are abducted. There's possible diplomatic sanctions that can be put on states in relation to the diplomacy and ambassadors in cities. There's trade and economic sanctions that should be looked at in relation to the governments that are not looking at this to bring back children who have been illegally kidnapped from their countries. This is the serious approach that has to be taken. This is the serious measures I want to hear from this government to say you will, with other countries, taking these sanctions if this bilateral agreement is not agreed by the Egyptian authorities.
Thank you.
4 years is too long, 2 weeks is too long, another 3 months is too long. This has to be addressed with seriousness from here on in.
Tánaiste.
Well, the issue is being addressed with seriousness. I mean, the problem here is that the international framework for dealing with abduction cases is the Hague Convention. Egypt, unfortunately, is not a party to the Hague Convention. So we have to operate outside, we have to operate bilaterally with them on the issue. As I've said, this is a case that I have raised previously with Egyptian ministers for Foreign Affairs, and I know also that Deputy Martin, who was my predecessor as Minister for Foreign Affairs, had raised the issue before my time. As you know, there's been a lot of changes in the political environment in Egypt, and that's one of the reasons why I felt I should talk directly to the new Minister for Foreign Affairs, who's been relatively recently appointed to take a direct interest in this case. It's also the reason why Minister Shatter has made the approach to his counterpart that in the absence of Egypt being part of the Hague Convention, that we try and get a bilateral country-to-country arrangement dealing with the issue of abduction. But one of the things that I'm very conscious about is, you know, a lot of these wheels move very slowly in terms of dealing with issues internationally. And I understand entirely that the child's mother and their family want to get this child back, want to have the child back, and want that to happen as soon as possible. I know that they have travelled to Egypt and that those visits were successful in terms of getting the child returned. And I want to say to you, and indeed to the family, that we will continue to do everything we possibly can. The immediate issue now, as I said, I spoke to the Foreign Minister on Monday. I will be following up on that, and I will keep the family informed.
Thank you.